Sarah, an 82-year-old woman, decided to move into a nursing home after her family convinced her that it was the best option for her to have adequate care. Her family promised that the nursing home would provide her with comfort, safety, and a more comfortable life as she got older. They said that she would not have to worry about anything anymore, that everything would be taken care of. With these promises, Sarah felt secure and confident in her decision. However, as soon as she entered the nursing home, Sarah realized that life was not at all what she had imagined. She began to notice that she no longer had the right to make decisions about the small details of her daily life. Everything in the home was regulated according to a common schedule, from mealtimes to bedtimes. Everything happened according to the wishes of others, not hers. Decisions such as when to eat, when to sleep, or when to go for a walk were no longer hers. The sense of freedom and independence she once had at home was gone. Have you ever wondered how it would feel if you could no longer decide when to eat, when to sleep, or when to go for a walk? Sarah wondered during the long sleepless nights when she felt like a guest in her own life. The small decisions she once took for granted now felt like distant dreams. And as she looked around her room, which was no longer her home, Sarah began to feel like she had lost the most important thing: control over her own life. 2. The loss of independence. The most shocking thing about moving into a nursing home for Sarah was the realization that she had lost her autonomy. Previously, Sarah had the freedom to decide everything about her daily life, from when she slept, what meals she ate, to when she could go for a walk. That freedom gave her the feeling that she was still in control of her life, even as she got older. Every morning, she woke up when her body told her it was time, not bound by a rigid schedule. Meals, although simple, were prepared to her personal taste, and she decided when and how much to eat. If she felt tired or needed some space, she could walk around the house or sit on the porch to enjoy the fresh air without having to ask anyone for permission. All of these little things, which we often take for granted, were important rights that she cherished. However, when Sarah moved into the nursing home, everything changed rapidly. Her daily activities had to follow the schedule set by the nursing home. Mealtimes, bedtimes, even when she could go out for a walk, were all taken away from her. Breakfast was served at a certain time, whether she felt hungry or not. She had to eat the nursing home menu, with no alternatives. Bedtimes were also clearly regulated, whether she felt sleepy or not, and even though there were days when she did not want to sleep at that time. Something as seemingly trivial as going for a walk around the nursing home grounds was no longer simple. Sarah had to wait for the nursing home staff to have free time to take her, if they had time. This made her feel like she no longer had control over her life, and that everything was dependent on others. These changes not only made Sarah feel deprived of her freedom, but also made her feel lost. You may have to give up a lot of things when you move into a nursing home, but are you ready to give up the little freedoms you used to have? Because when you lose them, you feel more lost than ever. This is what Sarah began to feel when she realized that the little freedoms she used to have were the important things that helped her feel like she was still herself. When she no longer had the freedom to make simple decisions like when to eat, when to sleep, or when to go for a walk, she began to feel like she was living in an environment that was not her own. This affected not only her physically but also her mentally. Before moving into a nursing home, Sarah thought it would be a gentle and easy change. She thought she would receive full care without having to worry about anything. But after moving into the nursing home, she realized that losing the freedom to make the smallest decisions had a profound impact on her sense of freedom and control over her life. The decisions she used to make every day, when to eat, when to get around, even when to take a quiet break, were no longer in her hands, and this changed how she felt about her life. For those considering moving into a nursing home, the question to ask is, are you willing to give up the small freedoms you once had in exchange for care and safety? Giving up these freedoms can create feelings of loss that you may not have anticipated. It is important to consider carefully whether this is the right choice for you, because once you lose control of your life, regaining it can be extremely difficult. The loss of freedom can be more than just a minor inconvenience, but a major change in how you feel about your day-to-day life. 3. Feeling forgotten. Sarah remembers the early days when she first moved into the nursing home. Her family still visited her every week. Her daughter, every week, took time to visit, bringing her favorite foods and telling her about what was going on in their lives. At that time, Sarah felt that her family's care was still enough, and the nursing home was not a place where she felt lonely. She felt that she was still connected to the outside world, to her loved ones, even though she was living in a strange environment. However, over time, those visits became less frequent. At first, her daughter started to visit less frequently, from once a week, now only once every few weeks. Her phone calls also became less frequent, and eventually, instead of visiting, she only received short congratulatory calls or greetings on special occasions. Sarah tried to understand that everyone had busy lives, but she couldn't deny the feeling of loss when she realized that the visits were no longer the same. Especially during the holidays, the time when she expected the most attention from her family, was when she felt the most alone. She sat alone in her room, looking out the window, and waiting for familiar footsteps that never appeared. In those moments, she began to wonder if her family really missed her, if they thought of her when they were busy with their own lives. Surely you must feel like sitting in the room waiting for someone to visit, but no one shows up. That's when you realize, the family's attention gradually fades, and you begin to feel like you are part of an old world that everyone has gradually forgotten. Although no one said it, the distance between Sarah and her family grew larger. The initial promises of regular visits were now just empty words, and this left Sarah feeling like she was being left behind, no longer the center of attention and love as before. This was not just a physical absence, but also a mental absence, as she felt that the care of her family had gradually faded. She was no longer someone who needed care and attention, but just one of hundreds of other residents in a nursing home where everyone's attention to each other was no longer as it used to be. 4. Losing the purpose of life. George, 84, was a man who had lived a busy and fulfilling life. He had been a skilled carpenter all his life, always having creative projects at home, from woodworking to small construction projects to repairing household items. George loved his work, not only because it was a profession, but also because it gave him a sense of accomplishment and purpose in life. Every day, he had something to do, a small task to complete, and it was what motivated him to get up in the morning. However, when he moved into a nursing home, everything changed. The creative activities he loved were abruptly cut off. There were no more woodworking projects or small repairs that he could do himself at the nursing home. Instead, his days became long and meaningless. There was nothing to care for, no purpose to strive for, and he felt like he was living in an empty space. The loss of purpose in life made George feel worthless, no longer had a reason to wake up every morning. Before, he always had small projects to do, but now, everything was done by others. He no longer needed to do anything himself, and this made him feel useless. As the days passed, he began to feel that he was losing his vitality and no longer had any meaning in this life. Do you ever feel that life has lost its meaning when you have nothing to do, nothing to care for or strive for? George asked himself in his quiet moments. His life was no longer the same, where every day there was a job to complete, something to be proud of. This change made him feel like he was no longer himself, and what he used to love was now just a faint memory. In the nursing home, he not only lost the work he loved, but also lost his independence, the feeling of being in control of his life. George began to see himself as part of a larger system where he had no voice or control. And gradually, this made him feel abandoned, without purpose and without hope. This made George think about life, about what he had lost by deciding to go to a nursing home. 5. Rapidly declining health. At first, when Sarah first moved into the nursing home, she felt that not having to worry about cooking or doing chores around the house was a wonderful thing. She no longer had to spend time preparing meals or cleaning the house, everything was taken care of by the nursing home. This comfort initially made her feel like she was on a long vacation, no longer burdened with work and able to relax without having to worry about anything. But over time, Sarah realized that what seemed like a convenience began to have a negative effect on her body. Not having to move much, not doing chores like before, made her feel her body gradually weaken. The light exercises she used to maintain every morning were no longer there, and just sitting in her room or participating in passive activities at the nursing home made her feel her body was gradually lacking vitality. Gradually, she realized that the lack of movement not only weakened her body but also affected her spirit. Sarah felt her strength fading, and simple activities like walking or climbing stairs began to become more difficult. This left her feeling helpless and wondering if she would ever regain her strength. It may seem convenient to do nothing, but did you know that your body starts to lose strength if you don't exercise regularly? Sarah wondered, as she realized that what she was experiencing was an irreversible change without intervention. She recalled Alice, an 81-year-old friend in the nursing home who used to walk every day. Alice had always been an active person, who loved to walk around the grounds to maintain her health. However, after a period of inactivity, Alice began to have difficulty moving around. At first, she only needed a cane for support, but then she started using a wheelchair, a drastic change that none of us want to see. Look at Alice, 81, who used to walk every day, now using a wheelchair after a short time. Sarah felt anxious thinking about what she might become like Alice if she didn't take action now to stay mobile. Not only does inactivity weaken your body, it also takes away your independence and mental strength. Sarah realized that while the nursing home offered comfort, it also meant she was giving up important things to keep her body and mind healthy. 6. Loss of privacy and dignity. When Sarah moved into a nursing home, she did not expect that the loss of privacy would have a profound impact on her sense of freedom and dignity. Previously, at home, Sarah could do everything comfortably, from dressing, bathing to eating, she did everything naturally and independently. But when she entered the nursing home, all of these became activities that required the assistance of staff. Every day, she had to wait and ask for help when she wanted to change clothes, bathe or even go to the toilet. This not only reduced her sense of autonomy, but also made her feel like she was losing basic rights that were previously part of her daily life. Gradually, Sarah felt that her privacy had completely disappeared. Every moment of the day was filled with the presence of others. She was no longer free in the most basic actions, but instead felt like she had to depend on others. Things that she used to do naturally, like bathing, eating, or dressing, now became requests that she had to ask for permission, taking away some of her sense of self-respect and dignity. Every time the nursing home staff came to help her change or bathe, Sarah felt like a patient, no longer the independent woman she used to be. Do you ever feel like you're no longer yourself when you have to ask for help from others for even the smallest things in life? Especially things you used to do naturally, like bathing or eating? Sarah asked herself, realizing that the loss of autonomy in these personal actions was a big change that she could not have foreseen. She missed the old days, when all of these things were just daily routines, without having to ask anyone's opinion, and she felt completely free. The feeling of being invaded in the most private parts of her body and life made Sarah feel like she was no longer herself. What seemed like a small thing, like the right to change clothes in private and to bathe by herself, now made her feel like she had lost her respect and personal freedom. This intrusion was not just an inconvenience but a profound emotional shock, making her feel like she was living in a system in which she was no longer in control of her own life. 7. Difficulty in leaving. When Sarah decided to move into a nursing home, she thought that if she didn't like it, she could leave at any time. She believed that returning to her old home would be simple and easy. Her home, where she had lived for many years, would still be a place where she felt comfortable and safe. However, when Sarah tried to return to her old home after a period of time in the nursing home, she realized that everything had changed. The home she loved and was familiar with was no longer the same. The furniture and household items that she had cared for so carefully now seemed to be not as well kept as before, and the feeling of familiarity was not as strong as she remembered. She looked around and felt a strange sense of alienation, as if no part of the home belonged to her anymore. In addition, her children began to worry about whether she could live alone. They were concerned about her health and seemed to no longer trust her ability to care for herself as before. Sarah began to realize that what she thought would be easy, moving back into her old home and living independently, was not so simple. She felt hesitant, no longer confident in her ability to live on her own. You think leaving a nursing home is easy, but do you know that when you've been there for a long time, you lose confidence in your ability to live independently, and moving back home is not as simple? Sarah asked herself, as she realized that the nursing home had not only changed her life, but also her sense of independence and self-care. She no longer felt as confident in facing daily tasks at home as she had before, and the uncertainty of facing these changes alone made her feel less capable of making decisions than she had before. The fear of living independently, the anxiety of her family, and the lack of confidence in her own health left Sarah at a crossroads, unsure of which way to go. Returning home was no longer a simple choice but an anxious decision, and she felt trapped in a situation from which she could not escape. 8. Calling on viewers to think carefully. Before Sarah decides to move into a nursing home, she advises viewers to ask themselves important questions that could change their lives forever. One of the questions Sarah asks herself is, are you willing to give up your freedom, dignity, and purpose in exchange for care? This is a question that not everyone thinks carefully before making a decision. Going into a nursing home, although it may seem like a safe and convenient option, comes at a cost. You have to give up your autonomy in the smallest things in life, from choosing when to eat and sleep to being able to go for a walk when you want. These seemingly small freedoms play an important role in maintaining your dignity and sense of personal freedom. Once you lose those rights, you will feel like you are no longer yourself. In addition, when you go into a nursing home, you not only give up your freedom, but you may also lose your purpose in life. Sarah realized that without the simple tasks she used to do, her life felt empty. The loss of small goals and personal responsibilities left her feeling unmotivated, and her days began to feel meaningless and repetitive. This made her wonder, was her life worth living without the goals and activities she loved? It's definitely not a decision that can be changed easily, Sarah said. Don't let a one-time decision change your life forever. This is something Sarah wants to emphasize, because once you've entered a nursing home, it's hard to go back to your old life, even though it's a big decision that will have a profound impact on how you live your final years. Deciding to enter a nursing home isn't something that can be changed easily, which is why Sarah advises viewers to take the time to think carefully about what they're losing. Giving up your independence and autonomy can leave you feeling a range of emotions, from loss of personal freedom to feeling dependent. Before making this decision, you need to think about the long-term effects and whether you can live with this change. Think carefully before making this choice, as it will be a decision that will affect the rest of your life. Call to action and encouragement for interaction. If you can relate to Sarah's story or are considering placing a loved one in a nursing home, please leave a comment below this video sharing your thoughts. Making such a decision is not an easy one and will undoubtedly have a profound impact on your life or the life of a loved one. What will you do to protect your freedom and health? Are you mentally preparing for major life changes? Share your thoughts, questions, or even decisions with us, as your story may help others in similar situations. Every opinion and story you share is valuable and can create connections that help others make better decisions. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like the video to let us know you want to continue receiving valuable content like this. Please share this video with your loved ones, as this information can help them make important decisions about their health and care. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos, where we will continue to share tips and knowledge on how to live a healthy and long life. Let's create a community of sharing, helping each other live better every day.